In this video, we're going to talk about the overview. I tried to get a brand new character for this video because I thought that would give me a default overview to start with, but I was wrong, and in fact, I just remembered that the overview is per client, not per character. So I still have my normal overview up here, which is alright. We can work with that. You can see my typical overview that I use for pretty much everything is 5 tabs. I've got a drones tab, a scan tab, an everything tab, a nav tab, and a PvP tab. Just a brief description of what each of them does and why I have them. I have a drones tab. All that has is drones and only enemy drones. So if I'm ever in a fight and I switch to my drones tab, I'll only see hostile drones on that tab. So in some cases when you're flying a frigate, and some other cases even when you're flying a bigger ship, you may want to destroy the enemy's drones to lessen the amount of DPS you're taking. So in that case, you quickly switch over to the drones tab, lock up the enemy drones, and then you can start shooting at them. The next tab is the scan tab. The scan tab has stations, belts, and stargates. Basically things that you would typically find somebody in if you were going around using your directional scanner. And that's the whole reason behind it, is so it can help me use my directional scanner to find hostile ships when I'm going through low sec or 0-0. I can kind of scan and say, well, right, there's a guy in that direction, and I can see there's only one belt there, so I can easily warp there. And I know that I'm warping into that belt where that Hulk is, or whatever the case may be. It helps to have the belts there in some cases. The next tab I don't use very often. I'm even considering getting rid of it because I use it so seldomly. And that's the everything tab. The everything tab is just everything. There's everything in the game shows up here. And the only thing that I really use it for is when I'm flying a cloaked ship. And let's pretend that I was in a stealth bomber or a recon, let's say like a rapier or a pilgrim or something, and I was wanting to sneak up on this Hulk. I'd be going towards him, and my main concern would be I didn't want to uncloak, and I wouldn't want to be uncloaked until I got within range to point him. And oftentimes when I uncloak like that, I'll uncloak and try to give him a bump so that I have a little bit of extra time for the cloaking delay to expire, so that I can lock the target before he can warp. So with the everything tab, you can see where everything is. And in an asteroid belt, there's oftentimes asteroids all around you, wrecks, cans, that kind of thing, that would uncloak your ship. So it's good to be able to see where everything is. And I see, oh, well, I'm getting too close to that asteroid there, so I need to go a little bit in this direction, and so on. But like I said, I haven't been flying cloaky ships all that much lately, and I haven't been using this that much. You may find it useful. That's, for everyone. The overview is completely a kind of custom thing. It's all based on personal preference. So the next one I have is the nav. And nav, I call it nav, but it's really, the main thing I use it for is it's a friendly and hostile ship overview. So basically, if I want to see what friendly ships are around me that are in fleet or in corp or alliance, whatever, then I can go to my nav tab and it'll show all ships, friendly or hostile or neutral. It also has all gates on it. So usually when I'm going system to system, I'll use the nav tab and use that to select gates as I go. It's probably my most used overview setting. Actually, it's without a doubt, I use nav more than any other overview tab, just because it's kind of got the most important information: friendlies, hostiles, etc. Most fleets would tell you that you should have a PvP overview, and I agree that you should have one. And a lot of people tell you that you should always use your PvP overview and you should never have friendly ships on your overview. And I disagree. You need to see what friendly ships are around. You need to see where they are. There's times when you need to see them, but there are times when you need to not see friendly ships and you need to only see the hostile ships. For that, I have my PvP overview. My PvP overview tab. This overview tab has nothing but enemy ships, neutral ships, or anything that's not blue or corp or fleet. So hostile ships basically, and the sun. The reason it has the sun and nothing else is because a lot of times when I'm in a really fast-paced fight, what I'll do is I'll use the sun as a quick align-to point, so I can get a line pretty rapidly. Not always. A lot of times if I'm in a fight, I'll just randomly kind of take my mouse and select something just randomly in space and then align to it. As you know, the enemy's about to go down and I got the hostile fleet coming in on me, I'll just quickly align to something right as the target's dying, so that as soon as he blows up I can hit warp and be out of there. And a lot of times that'll be the sun. I like having the sun up there. It's been useful in the past. So now that we kind of know what all this is about, let's go over the columns here. You got the icon here, IC. That's the icon for what it is. You can see that everything has different icons. Squares for stations, triangles for belts, and little circles with triangles or whatever it is for gates, and so on. You got the distance. I always sort from closest to farthest on distance. You got the name. It could be the player name or the name of whatever it is. Then I don't think it's standard, but everyone should have type added to their overview. The type column. I'm going to show you how to do that. Actually, I'll show you right now. Let's see. Open overview settings. We'll get to this part in a minute. Columns. Here are all the columns you can use. Now, type tells you, like, if you saw a player name, Abaddon 21, type Hurricane, right? It'll tell you, the player's name, then it'll tell you what ship he's in, and you have to know what ship your enemy is in, if you're going to make intelligent choices in a fight. So make sure you have type selected and you can see it, so you can see what ship type they're in. The next thing you can see here is velocity, and mine seems actually a little bit crammed into the side there, but I usually like it a little bit bigger. Anyway, velocity, that's the other ship's velocity. You can see this Hulk came back in, and he's moving at 23 meters a second, slowly decelerating as he just came out of warp. By knowing the velocity of a ship, you can learn a lot about the ship. Like I've said in other videos, you can learn, their velocity will tell you if they're micro warp drive fit or afterburner fit. Their velocity will tell you, are they chasing you or are they just sitting there? Are they moving fast or slow? It can tell you a lot. That's another one of the most important columns you can have. Beyond that, here are the rest of the columns that you could choose. I personally think that there's not much value in most of them, but some do have their places. For example, there's tag. Hardly anyone uses tag. It's a way to order targets, so you can have primary, secondary, tertiary, etc. A, B, C. I think it goes, or maybe even goes in numbers 1, 2, 3, and it kind of orders your targets. The only time I've seen that used successfully is in group ratting, pretty much. Maybe in incursions they'd have a use for using that tag, but I've never really had a use for it. Corporation and alliance tags, those basically tell you what corp and alliance the other ship's from. I used to have those selected because I used to care, but I don't care anymore, so I don't have them selected, because basically if they're neutral to me, I really don't care what corporation or alliance they're from. The only time that's important is if, say, you're looking at something and there's two different groups there, and maybe you want to know if they're all together, or maybe they're sitting there and they're about to fight each other, or whatever. But I don't think it's that's valuable real estate on your screen right there. Don't waste it with the name. There's another way we can get that information if we really want it, and that's to hover your mouse over it, and you can see that says Hulk, so he's not in a corp. But there's a way to set it up so that when you put your mouse over it, it'll tell you right here. This is all the stuff that it'll tell you when you put your mouse over the target. And you can see I've got Alliance, Corp, pilot name, ship type. And so basically, if I wanted to know what Corp or Alliance this guy was in, I'd just hold my mouse over it. This guy's not in an Alliance or Corp, so it's not showing. But that's how I would tell. And that way I only have to see that information if I want to see that information. I don't waste real estate on it. Down here, faction, same thing as that. Just really don't care. Militia, don't care. Size, I would love it if the size overview setting was actually accurate, because you could use size to tell, does your target have its micro warp drive on, because the micro warp drive makes its size bigger. You could say, look at a ship. Say you're looking at a Dramiel and you wanted to know if it was armor tanked or shield tanked. You could use size to tell if it was armor tanked or shield tanked, because the shield would make the ship bigger than its standard size, while the armor tank wouldn't. That would really be a great feature if CCP would fix it, but it doesn't work. Size is not accurate and it's not dynamic. It doesn't seem to change depending on what the player fits, or depending on how the player uses his ship with micro warp drive or whatnot. Velocity, we already talked about that. Down here, these last three, radial, transversal, and angular, I can see how there's probably a good use for them, and I've seen some people use them. But the only time that I ever use any of these, and I forget whether I use radial, velocity, or transversal, I'm not sure. But the only time I would use it was in the past when I was flying a sniper battleship, and you'd want, I believe it was the radial velocity. I forget which one it was, but you'd want it to be as near to 0 as possible. So what I would do is I would use that to tell when the target was in a position where I could easily get a perfect shot on them without tracking being an issue. And I would also use it so I could kind of manually fly my ship in such a way that I reduced the amount of transversal velocity to where I could get a good shot on the target. But that's a little bit advanced, and I'd recommend most people leave that alone and don't mess with it. Now, on to the setting up your overview. There's a couple things you need to know about. First, overview tabs right here. This is where you assign all your tabs. You see I have drone, scan, everything, nav, PvP, just like you see over here. Those are the names of the tabs, and these are the profiles you use. You see I can put my everything profile in my drones tab if I wanted to. It wouldn't be very smart, but you can. Brackets, we'll save that for another video. Most people just leave them alone. You're not going to benefit from messing with them unless you're in a very large fleet fight, in which case you just want to come over and manually hide all brackets right here. If you hide brackets, it'll reduce lag. Miscellaneous here. Let's see, move entries with broadcast to the top. It depends on the fleet you're in, but I think most of the time it's good to have that. If somebody broadcasts a target, you want it to go to the top. So it's good to have that checked. Over here, let's see. We've already went over that. And we've already went over that. Okay, the appearance tab, that basically decides what your overview looks like. You can see right here I've got a corp. He's in the noob corp. See, I can uncheck this, and what happens? Nothing. Huh. I haven't really played with the appearance tab. You can customize it to show different things, show things differently. Like, let's see, that guy's green. Where's the green? See, I'll uncheck. It's the background, so that background should stop being green. See it? It's not that important. However you want to set it, it's completely personal preference. It's not going to make a big difference. So don't care. Moving on. Over here, this is probably the most important part. These are all the types of items that are on your overview, and these are the states of the items. Now, let's do types first. If you wanted to set up a drones tab, a drones profile, I should say, what you'd do is you'd come in here and you'd go deselect all. So that means nothing's going to show, right? If you wanted to set up an overview, an everything profile, you just select all, save, and you're done. But for this one, let's say deselect all. So right now there's nothing on my overview at all. Nothing will show. So then I come down here, drone. So I want fighters on the overview. I want let's see, stasis webifying drones, fighter bombers, E-war drones, combat drones, capturing drones. So now again I have a drones tab. And it's up to you if you want logistics or mining drones. You can throw that in there. It doesn't really matter. But for combat, I typically don't want mining drones on the overview. Logistics, I've yet to have a use for shooting logistics drones, but I can see how there would be in some situations maybe. But right there, we just created a drones tab by deselect all and then checking all the drones we wanted. Then to save it, you see right here it says not saved. You just come over here, right click this little square in the top left, and save current type selection as. Type in whatever you want to call it. Drones would be a good name, and then hit OK, and you got it saved. Another thing to keep in mind, is, we're going to talk about this again with the PvP overview setting, but once you have that, you can go over here and you're going to have to save it again after you mess with states. But basically, this decides what shows, and in the drones tab, it decides whose drones actually show. So if you have all these checked, then every type of drone or every drone will show without any dependency on who the owner is. So if all of them are checked, it doesn't matter who owns the drones. If you own them or somebody else in your alliance owns them or an enemy owns them, it doesn't matter. But what I do is I unselect excellent standing, good standing, alliance, corporation, fleet, militia. That way, whenever I'm going to my drones tab, I never see friendly drones because I don't want to lock and shoot friendly drones. I want to lock and shoot only hostile drones. Now it's the same thing here. We'll do the PvP. We're going to create our own PvP overview. You just deselect all, right? Come over here and then you want to go to ships. Then it's going to take me too long to do this right now. But you'd go through and you'd check all these one by one. Then as you were checking them, or once you finish checking them, same thing with states. You come over here and you make sure you have pilot has excellent standing unchecked, pilot has good standing unchecked, etc. You don't want to see those in your PvP overview tab. Now for the nav, like I told you before, I was saying that I like to see friendly ships in my nav tab. I like to see every ship that's on the field, neutral, friendly, doesn't matter. I want to see it there. So in this tab here, you can see all of them are checked, so everything shows. And that's basically all there is to the overview. Just create your own settings, whichever ones you want. If you want to copy me, that's great. I suggest everyone who does PvP in general have at least a drones tab and a PvP tab. If you're into scouting or solo PvP, definitely a drones tab and definitely a scan tab to assist you in scanning stuff out with your directional scanner. Everything tab, like I said, if you plan on doing a lot of cloaky stuff and you don't want to be uncloaked, then that's great to have. You can put it there, and that's an easy way to monitor your distances and avoid getting within 2K of something that would uncloak you. Nav tab, that's personal preference, however you want to do that. But that's basically how you set up all your tabs. Once you have them set up, you can also change them. Like right here, I can go and change that to drones. Like scan, a lot of times I'll take my scan tab and I'll put it on NPC when I'm ratting or doing a mission or something, which basically takes the scan tab and turns it into a tab that'll show all the NPCs. There's no NPCs here at the moment, so you can't see any, but the NPC tab is one that basically just shows all the NPCs so I can rat or mission. That's pretty much it for the overview. With those tips you can get yours set up, and hopefully it'll help you out.